Welcome back. I've got Marvin Karlow online. Marvin, how are you?
I'm doing great. Listen, Michael, congratulations on 1,000 episodes. It's probably a few more than that now, but goodness, that is a track record.
Yeah, it's lots of throat lozenges for sure. And ginger tea.
There you
So
go.
yeah. A lot of people say, you sure that's not an IPA? It's like I don't drink anymore. So it's definitely a ginger tea. So but thanks for checking, people.
Yeah.
But I used to say, alcohol doesn't know how to tell time. So but that's all good. So really looking forward to this conversation. You do some amazing work. So why don't you share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, Michael, I started life, believe it or not, as a physicist, and then I was a corporate executive for many years, and punched out of that and went to completely the other end of the spectrum. Bought a small metal finishing company. The partner that we grew over sort of the next decade, sold it to a publicly traded company, and from there, I really developed a passion for helping small business owners sell their companies when the time comes. We chatted earlier, every business owner exits eventually, right? And you'd like to do it under your own power, and you'd like to get maximum value for the asset that you've built. And so that's what I try to help people do when the time comes.
Yeah, no, it's important. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs, when they launch their business, they're not thinking about the exit. They're thinking about, I'm building this business. They're in build mode and create mode and get it to whatever size they have in mind. But they don't think about, okay, when I'm done with this, what do I want to do? And because they don't think about the done part. They just
Right.
think, oh, it's just going to be going on and on forever and ever. And the business could go on for a very long time. Unfortunately, we all come with expiry dates. So if you want the business to go on beyond you, then you have to have that planned as well. But if not, then I always tell people that, the best time to prepare to sell your business is immediately, even if you have no plan on selling it. You
Well,
figure
I
out,
mean,
what do
Michael,
I need to do? Go ahead.
I think it's like anything else. I mean, what's the old saying that the easiest time to get, a loan is when you don't need one? I mean, it's sort of the same thing. It's always easier to do something when you're not under the gun than when there's pressure. And there are people out there that there's sort of this school of thought that says, hey, you should run your business as if you were exiting it tomorrow, right? And I think that's not a bad mindset if it works for you. Like, hey, do everything in your business as if you were going to put it on the market soon. The other way is do all the right sorts of things in your business. And having done all of those things, for the most part, you will have done everything you need to exit well, right? The question, really, in my mind, really is what does well mean? And so the reason that I really developed a passion for this space, especially the lower middle market, I mean, if your company is worth $150 million, there's people tripping all over themselves to represent you when you're ready to sell that, right? But if your company's worth $1.5 million or $15 million, there aren't so many people tripping over themselves to help you, when you're ready to exit. And that's what we do, because that part of the market is not well represented, right? And the reason it's not well represented is, one of the reasons is that there's no credentials required. People don't know that. But actually, the person, well, in our case, not, but the person, like what I always say is the person that cuts your hair has a credential on the wall. Your business broker may not. So that's something to really check. Like, do they have a FINRA license that says they're qualified to do this? Or did they just decide a couple of days ago to be, you know, a business broker? So we bring middle market investment banking skills and processes and best practices to businesses that are worth less than $100 million. And that's what we do.
It's good that you're serving that market because a gigantic number of small businesses are in that window. And
Gigantic. Yeah,
yeah,
gigantic.
and
Right.
they've been for years fumbling around where they're like, yeah, I'm gonna have to sell my business because life change, or they can't be in the business anymore. Maybe they have to be a caregiver, so they can't allocate any more time to it. Like, I gotta sell it. And at that point, it's much like, I don't want to use this analogy, but it's the first one that came to mind. It's like if you're having financial difficulty and you've got some assets that might be worth something, then you're going to a pawnbroker and you're like, all right, what will you give me for this? And it's worth this, but they need to mark up because they have to make a profit. So you get less than that. And that's, like you said, you're under the pressure to do it. And then you're
Yeah,
not
Michael,
you're not getting like, but
no, I've never used the pawnbroker example. I love that. I may steal that, but yeah, it's another analogy is a house. I mean, people will equate selling a business to selling a house. They're similar, but they're very, very different transactions. But yeah, I mean, if you haven't mowed your lawn in, or haven't watered your lawn in 3 months, and you haven't mowed it in a month, and you haven't updated anything, inside, and there's algae in the pool, and it's not going to show very well. And it's the same with a business, right? And I talk to people all the time, and I ask them, so why are you selling? And the answer nets out to, I'm burned out. Well, okay. I mean, but maybe don't get to that point. Like, your business is probably worth more if you sell it before you get to the point where you're burned out. Something that we'll do for anyone, of your listeners who reaches out is we'll provide them with a free valuation estimate for their business. It's everybody's number one question. People are frequently surprised, and frequently on the positive side, of what their business could actually be worth. And that answer can help people sort of make decisions. And if it's not the right time, or if it's not the right number, then you get some insight into what is it that's driving the valuation that maybe you can go fix. And I think that's super helpful for people. And so we do all of that for folks for free, for your listeners. We won't charge anybody. And it gets people in the ballpark of, okay, at least I have some idea what I might net out of this. Is that enough? If it's not, what might I need to do to sort of shore this up? And then obviously there's a whole lot more to it, but at least you've got kind of that key question answered.
yeah, it's a good way to at least get a snapshot of where you are right now, and you go, okay. Because if they were thinking about exiting and they didn't understand all of the nuances of business valuation, then they might be, like you said, shocked, like, oh, wow, I could potentially get that. Again, it may change things, or they may go, all right, I'm getting this. And they're like, it'd be really nice to get to this level. What are the things that I should do in order to, potentially get to that level? Now, of course, there's always external factors involved, market conditions. What's the product or service you have? Is it
Yep.
demand now, or could it be in demand? And again, sometimes entrepreneurs, they're really passionate about what they have, and they think it's, the greatest thing ever. And I'm not saying that it isn't, but you may be overvaluing in your mind what you have. But the numbers are the numbers, and based on your what you have, the product or service, the marketplace, where you're based, who you serve, all of those things play a big part in that. And the more you know about that, then you say, well, okay, how do I get it to that? And I've seen this too in having conversations like, well, I went to this and they said the valuation of the business was this, and I really want it to be this, but I'm not sure how to grow that. And I said, you launched this business, right? Yeah. How much were you making your first day? A zero. And how much are you making now? Whatever they make.
Right.
You did that. So you can do the next thing too. Just got to
100%.
talk with people that can guide you on how to get to there. And it's a lot of times people hit that ceiling and they go, I can't get past that. Well, if that's what you're telling yourself, then you're correct. You won't get
Right.
past that. But there's, for most things, yeah, you can expand your reach and get you to the levels that you want the business to get to. But there's going to be some steps involved, investments, all kinds of different things. But ultimately, if you know what you'd like to get out of the business, well, figure out how much it is right now, and from there, okay, make the decisions, and you've
Well,
got
so a couple
options.
of things. Yeah, a couple of things to take out of what you said. So first of all, if you're not where you want to be and you've got some runway, then we have people that we work with on a regular basis. We don't get anything out of the referral, but absolutely will refer folks from your show who reach out who aren't ready to go or aren't going to get the number that they need yet to this group. And they're miracle workers. They really are. It's all former business owners who have sat in the exact seat you're sitting in. But I think the key takeaway is whoever you use, don't live in your own echo chamber. Get some advice. Get a mentor. Join Vistage or YPO or some other group where people will challenge your assumptions and get you out of your comfort zone and all of that, right? And then to your point, like you got it from A to B, you probably with some help can absolutely get it from B to C. The valuation that we'll do for you will give you, a range at least of kind of the metrics that go into computing a valuation. You gave a great list. Zero order is what's your profit, what's your EBITDA, and what multiple does that segment earn, right? That's the very basic thing. And then given those two things and some other factors, you've got an idea, okay, what are the best levers to pull and what target am I shooting at? The flip side is I had a guy call me up and he was joking sort of. And he said, listen, Chat GPT tells me that my business is worth, $5 million. Great. Chat GPT is frequently right, but I'd like to double check. So send me your financials. He did. And I said, no, I think your business is worth $12 million. Well, if it's worth $12 million, then I might be ready to sell. Well, fantastic. Doesn't always work out that well. Chat GPT is not always hallucinating that badly. But, having a professional take a look and say, no, you know what? Multiples in your market at this point in time are higher than you think that they are, and you can get this. The other side of that coin, though, is if you're estimating the value of your business based on some formula that you saw in some headline somewhere, you're probably catastrophically overvaluing your business. There's a reason that business and that transaction made a headline that was clickbaity enough for you to read the article. That's not the normal experience. That's a one-off that was some unique situation, and don't be lured in by that.
Yeah, there's always somebody that will overpay for something. And it's like, well, this is the valuation. Well, they got that. Yeah, and that individual overpaid for that for whatever reasons they did. Could be
Or
part
they
of their,
didn't.
or
Right.
that's true.
Or they didn't. Because it's so context dependent. Early on in my career, we paid $20 million for something that wasn't even earning a profit. And 12 months later, it was making $100 million in our context. Okay, it looks like we overpaid, except nope, we didn't. Because we had the distribution to, make that 5x it in 12 months. Okay. But that's happened once in my entire career. Okay. So if maybe you're the unicorn, probably not. So it's just better to be a little more realistic.
Actually, I had an interview earlier today with Unicorn Creative, a marketing firm. So ironically, it's like, yeah, they're the unicorn, but yeah, it's like you have one great, transaction and you think all of a sudden you get confident and you think, okay, yeah, well, they got this, of course, but you're comparing apples and oranges and other
Right.
fruits and vegetables.
Right.
Everything is unique. And again, it depends on, okay, what's your value add as a business? What are you doing? How are you serving? Where's the runway? Are you profitable? Even if you're not profitable, again, it could be a situation when you're finding a buyer. The buyer's like, yeah, I'm aware that this company is not profitable. Like in the situation you gave before, it's like, look at the numbers. You're like, why in the world would anybody pay that for that? And then, 12 months later, they see what you brought back and they go, oh, they saw something that we didn't. And
Right.
it could be that, or it could be part of a bigger strategic play for a company that's like, yeah, we know this, but we want this particular service that we don't have yet. We could develop it. It's going to take 18 to 36 months for us to develop it.
Or we can just buy it.
Or we buy it now. and we add
Right.
it to it, and it's a suite, and we know that over a period of 60 months we'll recover that, and then after that it's all gravy for us. And
Right.
again, it's you have to understand what those things are, and as the seller, if you find somebody along those lines, and that's why working with a team like yours can help, because you've got the network where you say, okay, there might be somebody that would be interested in this, because again, everybody comes at you with, here's what I have, this is what it does. And you may know it's like, oh, somebody's looking for something like that, or maybe not, but we're like, well, we'll see what's out there. And
Right.
you didn't know somebody was out there looking for it, and guess what, they did.
Yeah. So there's two really good things that I want to double click on in what you said. So the first one is, you know, anybody can list a business on Biz Buy Sell and wait for the phone to ring. This is not a difficult task. In fact, the business owner can do that themselves, right? That's not the approach that gets taken in the middle market, and that's not the approach that we take. Not that we don't utilize Biz Buy Sell, we absolutely do. Everybody does, but our approach is we start by working out a valuation, which is just our opinion of value and not what the market thinks, right? And we don't share that. When we list the business, we list it and we're running an auction. Not like a school auction, right? But we're running a closed bid process where we're taking all the interested buyers in this big funnel through, hey, here's all the material about the business, here's their financials and what have you. Give us sort of your initial estimate of what you think you might be willing to pay if you're interested. Then we provide them a bunch more information, they refine that, and ultimately that ends up in some set of letters of intent, and everybody knows that they're competing, and that's the key, right? You don't think that it's again, in the real estate example, it's like the agent open house when there's 50 couples all in the house at once looking, and they get 7 offers, 6 of them over market. That's the situation we're trying to create for every business that we sell. Okay. And what we see routinely is, a premium to that the market will pay a premium to what we estimated the value to be. And if we just put that, if we'd estimated the value and put that price tag on the business, we would have sold it to the first person through the door for less than it was actually worth, right? No place in the world is what, something is worth what someone will pay for it than in M&A, right? To our earlier conversation, right? So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is lots of people think lots of people think who the ideal buyer should be. But the other thing that our process does is it really sweeps the corners. And we very frequently sell to people that are unexpected, right? That to your point, see some sort of synergy that other people miss, or that have some need that you wouldn't have expected, right? Or that just want it really badly, right? And so if you don't run kind of this auction process and you don't get people competing, you don't get people's highest and best offers. Nobody ever offers the most that they're willing to pay out of the gate. But when they know that they're competing and they're sort of committed to this process, and they've got some emotional involved, emotion plays a part in this for sure. Like, I mean, you've seen it, it's your kids school PTA auction or whatever. Like, really? I mean, I understand that's for charity and people have other motivations, but it's the same psychology here. So that's how we approach it. And that's why I'm really confident in almost every case that we've gotten the highest value possible for a business.
No, it's a great. I love the analogy on that. It makes a ton of sense. Where it's like all the other companies know, okay, well, this is we're bidding for this, and there's other people involved, and I love what you mentioned too about Like, well, who do you think will buy your business? But who buys your business may be, way out in left field. I could think of, if I was selling my business, like, okay, I could think that, of a handful of different, groups or individuals or somebody that might be interested in it. And all of a sudden you get an offer. It's like, yeah, there's a breakfast chain in Southern California that wants to buy your company because they know you have breakfast leadership trademarked and they like that name. So they want it. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. All right. Well, okay. Well, let's chat, and it's,
right.
or it could be somebody that just, some crazy rich person that just likes that phrase and likes the name of it and like, I want it. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
who
came
knows?
with it. I created it, but the right as as the Million Dollar Man, Ted DiBiase, if you're a wrestling fan, like to say, everybody has a price.
No,
And
that's exactly right. They do. Yep. Yeah, Jimmy Dean Sausage wants to buy Breakfast Leadership Show, right? Who knows why? But there you go. Like, you just don't know. And if you don't put it out there, you don't get in front of all of these people. And so that's why I really believe so strongly in this process. And it's not like we invented it. This is what the middle market investment banks that run around on Wall Street in suits and ties, this is we didn't invent this. They invented this. Lehman Brothers and those guys invented this way back in the day. And now we're following the same playbook, for a smaller, just for smaller transaction sizes. Yeah, to your point, Michael. I mean, who knows? Jimmy Dean Sausage might decide they want Breakfast Leadership Show for some reason, and you're not going to find that if you don't put it out very, very broadly, sweep all the corners, talk to everybody, whether it seems like a ridiculous conversation or not, and then get these people into this competitive situation where, and there are plenty of people who say, I don't want to compete. Okay, fine. Then you didn't want it very bad. Like, if you're not even willing to compete for it, you probably weren't going to buy it in the first place anyway. So we get the no's as quickly as possible. We get it, winnowed down to the set of folks that really, really do want it. And, the normal course is that there's a set of people who are, or organizations or whatever that are relatively similar, and you just, all the bids come in, more or less the same, and you're negotiating terms and all these other things, and but you're in a leverage, a high leverage situation, and so you end up with 3 or 4 similar kind of offers, and you pick one on based on whatever your criteria as a seller is, right? Other times there's 1 or 2, kind of unique buyers who have some really strategic, view of valuation. And in that case, you can get kind of crazy offers. And that's obviously what everybody hopes for. We hope for it because we get paid as a percentage of the deal, right? So that's good for us. We're all aligned on getting more money. But it, I think the thing that's a little challenging for everybody, us included, is it's difficult to engineer those situations, right? You could think that Breakfast Leadership Show is the absolute best possible thing that Jimmy Dean Sausage could buy, other than pork and spices, right? But if they don't agree with you, there's no amount of emailing, calling, texting, showing up at headquarters that's going to change their mind, right? But if they do, in the cases where they do, who knows what it's worth in their context? Because their context is so much larger than our context as small business owners.
And that's the thing. It's like, don't get married to the idea that this particular company is going to be the one interested unless they tell you that they are. And then even
That's
then,
right.
and even
That's
then, it's like,
exactly right.
well, what, define interested. It's, that's, you bring people like yourself in. So love this conversation, Marvin. Where can people find out more about you and this amazing work?
Marvin.Karlow at Raincatcher.com. Reach out or just go to the team's page at Raincatcher.com and click on my profile. And seriously, Michael, I love talking to small business owners. I love talking to people who are looking to buy businesses. This is what I do every day. I'm going to do it until I can't do anything at all anymore. And so, please, it's easy to go on to the next thing when you're done listening to a podcast. But if you just send me an email, we'll get you scheduled. We'll have a conversation and we'll see where it goes. Marvin.Karlow@Raincatcher.com.
Definitely have that in the show notes. So Marvin, thank you for you, and thank you for the work that you do. Is so critically important to small businesses all across our country. So thanks again for being on the show.
Thanks, Michael, and thanks for doing the show. And again, congratulations on a really, really great run, and more in the future.